Texas Tech head men's basketball coach Mark Adams has been suspended from his coaching duties after using quotes from the Bible to try and teach a player how to become more receptive to coaching. The player felt uncomfortable about the quote because it dealt with a reference to slavery, and now Adams is suspended. Now, there are many problems with this suspension, and it's still crazy but not surprising to see this in today's sports world. What you are seeing, however, is an anomaly. See, Christianity is the only belief, and the Bible is the only religious text. You can still suspend someone for quoting. If Mark Adams had quoted the Quran, he would probably get his own 30 for 30 and an award for his bravery. The obvious thing to see is that the player wasn't really offended by the reference in the Bible. He was offended by the referendum on his inability to be coachable, and he was embarrassed after being called out. So what's the best way to even the score against an old white man that pissed you off? Fake social outrage and racial outrage. We see it so much more nowadays, it's sickening. Not to mention the fact that this player doesn't understand the history of slavery. The sad historical fact is the act of enslaving people has been practiced by basically every race on all sides. We even had races enslaving their own race. And the fact this player does not understand who or what the Bible is referencing when talking about slavery just shines a light on how poor our education system really is right now. Now, Coach Adams isn't clean in this either. He apologized as quickly as possible. And I get it to a certain extent in today's society. He almost had to cave to be able to continue to coach. But damn, dude, you're 66. Religion has obviously been a huge part of your life. And as long as Christians keep bowing to the mob when they're called evil, our people keep getting away with being historically ignorant without being called out, it's only going to get worse. We should be able to use religious quotes or references from all mediums and shouldn't be punished because of the ignorance or softness of the one making the complaint. Now, when the morally weak and ignorant always get their way eventually becomes the only way. So shame on you, Texas Tech, and hopefully those with a platform and with the guts will help me call this out. David, how surprised, I don't think surprise is the right word. Where do you think we're at in society right now in sports? Because when it comes to religion, because there's no way you could have done this against any other religion.
Sure.
Outside of Christianity. You look at what's happening in the Catholics right now. I mean, it's a crazy time for Christians, to be honest with you.
On this story here, I would like to know exactly what was said.
Yeah.
Verbatim. Not just generalizations that came out. I want to know exactly what was said in the context in which it was said, because you could have several different scenarios here. One, you could have a situation where Texas Tech's coach said something that was inappropriate and the feelings of the player are genuine, and perhaps he's trying to hide behind scripture after the fact. You could have a situation like that. Two, you could have a situation kind of like you outlined, where you have a young kid who doesn't want to be disciplined, like a lot of them these days in this generation, who doesn't want to get coached up at all, and the statement from coach was fairly innocuous. You could have that. Or you could have a situation where Texas Tech has already put Coach Adams kind of on the hot seat or wanted to move on maybe with some of the powers that be, and they're looking for a reason to fire. I heard that if they can fire him with cause, that buyout goes down $7 million. If that's a situation, there needs to be a serious lawsuit. That's why I want to know exactly what was said. And one more thing that I thought was interesting, and this came out from the Score. It said there was another incident involving the player, this same player, earlier this season, where Adams spit on him during a game, and Adams reportedly told the player, "I can spit on you whenever I want." That was another situation when I was looking up some of the details from this one that emerged. I don't know what kind of Coach Adams is, but I want to know exactly what was said.
The reason this guy got the job is because the players wanted him to get the job so bad. He wasn't the first choice for the Texas Tech administration. They hired him because nobody was happier than the players were when Coach Adams got hired. And when you look into it, he's talking about referencing scripture from the Bible. I don't think he looked at this guy and said, "You need to listen to me because you're my slave." That's that. He referenced the Bible. But again, name another religion. If this coach would have not been a white guy, let's go ahead and be honest. If he wouldn't have been a white guy and would have referenced the Quran if he was Islamic, there's not he could have said burn down America, death to America, and everything you want, there would have been no suspension. No suspension at all. I know the type player that this is. I've coached this type player. You guys out there know the type player this is too. We all know him. The one that gets called out because he's not performing or he did something off the field and he wants a way to get back at the coach. And this is the second time with the same player there's been something?
It said this player.
Okay. Well, there's a common denominator in all. If this was such a problem with Coach Adams and he was this racist monster, why is this only one player? Why have more players not come out and said, we need to get rid of Coach Adams, we need to do this and we need to do that? Now, on the other hand, where you're talking about Texas Tech, if they use this as a way to be able to save money by putting him on blast that way, that's an absolute joke. But that wouldn't be the first time that that's happened. And that's something when you look at, I mean, schools are always trying to find ways to fire guys with cause because you save money. Jeremy Pruitt, not saying this is the same situation at all. He deserved to be fired with cause. Tennessee saved a lot of money. So we'll see. All I know is there's one very narrow path that you can get suspended for quoting a religious text. That is the Bible. You could not get away with any other book in religion. It could be you think they're going to suspend him for quoting the Book of Mormon? Or something like that? Man, hell no.
It just depends on what is. Look, I'm not a super religious person, all right, but no matter the scripture, there's certain things you shouldn't say out of any holy book, whether it's the Bible or whatever else there is. If we find out what was exactly what was said, until then, I don't really know how you can have an input on it if you don't know exactly what was said.
Yeah,
but if there's anything, regardless, that was anything close to slavery, then he should be fired.
If he just said the word slavery?
No, if they said that this kid was, you're my slave, and you basically go back.
He didn't say you're my slave.
If that's how do you know exactly what he said?
Yes, because if he said you're my slave, he'd already been fired.
Well, he already said he could spit on a kid. Don't you think he'd already be fired for that?
How do you know he said that?
How do you know he didn't say that?
I said allegedly.
If he said, okay, well, think about context. Do you think maybe he was yelling at the guy and spit on the guy accidentally talking, and the guy was like, hey, coach, don't spit on me, you're yelling at me. He's like, I can spit when I talk whenever I'm talking to you. And
spit on you, not spit when I talk. That's not what he said. That's not what he said. He said, I can spit on you whenever I want.
He said Adams was encouraging a player to be more receptive to coaching and referenced a Bible verse about workers, teachers,
masters, and slaves
serving their masters.
Why
one of them I saw said servant.
Why would you do that? That's so dumb.
I saw had the word servant. One of them had the word slave. Again, I don't know.
So you don't know.
Everything's on video these days.
So you don't know. It depends on what the video says. But why would you use a scripture that has mastery and slavery in it?
Every scripture of all, again,
no,
wasn't the smartest? You're right, Blake, because you're so read up on religious scripture.
You're not either.
A lot more than you are.
I don't think so.
A lot more. You couldn't name four.
I don't think so.
Name 4 different religious books.
Why? You name 4.
The Quran, the Torah,
no,
the
read
Bible.
scriptures. Read the scriptures out of them.
I'm just saying name a book.
What do you know? You're talking about scriptures. They're not naming the book.
You name 4 of them.
But still, there's plenty of scriptures in the Bible.
So
whatever
you can't reference the Bible.
That you can. That's not what I'm saying.
Yeah,
there's certain scriptures you should reference out of the Bible.
So like the one that says,
"My brother John touches the pigskin, he should be burned at the stake." Should every football player be burned at the stake?
So you can't, but what we're saying is, if you're saying you can't reference the Bible at all because the word slavery is in the Bible, and you think that they're talking about that slavery, George Washington wasn't getting talked about in the Bible.
I'm saying there's certain scriptures out of every holy book that you probably shouldn't reference in certain situations. Anything that has to do with mastery and slavery to probably an African-American kid on a basketball team, probably not the best scripture to use.
This is why you made the best point. What do the other players on the team? What are the other guys
none of the other players have said anything.
Are they going to come out and defend Coach Adams, or are they going to come out and say, yeah, I mean, look, the other kid was right to be upset? That's going to be a deciding
And again,
factor.
I think you would have already heard about the other players. This would have already been a problem. What are the odds that it's the same problem from one guy? What was it the smartest decision ever? No. But what I'm pointing out is the hypocrisy of if you took a similar scripture out of any other religious book that was not the Bible or anything to do with Christianity, there would be no repercussion. There would be none at all. But since it's out of the Bible, and yet was it the best scripture to pull? Probably not. But the fact that that person would think that the coach is calling him a slave when it's not even talking about black people being enslaved. The Bible wasn't written. This isn't the 1619 Project. Like the Bible wasn't written back then. And the fact that this person can't discern the difference from that worries me more than anything, if you want to be honest. Because that's just called being dumb, If you
I
want
just don't know how we know that if we don't know what was said.
Wait a minute. You don't know that he's not talking about African Americans that were enslaved in the Bible?
No, we don't know what was said from that coach to that player. You just referenced if that dude said he could spit on anybody whenever he wants to, then we really be surprised if he said something like that.
Do you really think he would have said that to an African American player in the year 2023 earlier in the year and not have gotten suspended for it? Do you really believe that? Are you that naive to believe that?
It depends. Is he going to get away with this? Like, what is that? How do you know? How do you know? Are you the administration?
What do you mean is he going to get away with this?
I just watch a kid bring someone a gun.
He's already suspended.
Right, in a murder case and then play the rest of the season.
He's already
Am I going to be surprised?
He's already suspended. What do you mean is he going to have to pay for this?
Well,
they would suspend him for this and not for spitting on an African American.
I just don't understand. I just don't think it was smart to use the scripture.
Nobody is arguing whether it was smart or not. What we're talking about is the repercussion of the action and how it's only narrow focused on the Christianity angle. Nobody is saying that he's goodwill hunting for doing this or it was the greatest coaching move. So in my opinion, I wouldn't even have referenced anything. But that doesn't mean that you should be suspended.
So you don't think if this was any other holy book and he said the exact same thing, there'd be
no. I think if you wasn't a white guy, this wouldn't have been a problem.
Is he going to get fired?
That's a question I do not know.
Blaine, what do you think?
I don't know. I have to figure out what was said first. Once we figure out what was said, I think then we can probably go to the next step of this.
No, we'll keep covering it. Hey, YouTube, we appreciate you guys checking us out. Do us a favor. If you haven't already, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Turn that notification bell on so you know whenever we drop content. We'd really appreciate it.